I started in '02. I began wholesaling then, and I built a business model where between 2002 to 2008, my sister and I, we were wholesaling single family, then we went to wholesaling apartment buildings, and we did really well. We made millions of dollars, and then the market crash happened, and it all imploded on us, right? Funny enough, back then, we were doing something similar to what Pace is doing in Subject 2, but in Canada, they were assumable mortgages, and, that all just went belly up. So it's funny, the reason why I'm so adverse to leverage these days is because I saw what can happen when a market tanks and you have to debt service. And so it didn't end well for us in Canada. The market really imploded and our business imploded, and I ended up taking down my family, friends, myself. We all just went totally belly up. My parents became homeless. I was homeless. We ended up moving into a 2-bedroom apartment together. It was just a unfortunate thing. But at the same time, we all stuck together. So family and unity was strengthened in those times of grief and strife. And so really the foundation, not that we didn't have a strong foundation, but the foundation of that unconditional love in our family was set, right? Because I messed up. And when you mess up that bad and you essentially lose your entire family's nest egg and nobody blames you for it, nobody points their finger at you and says you suck, you ruined us. You're like, I never heard that from my mom and dad.
Wow.
I never heard that from my sister. Nobody ever blamed me, And even though I was to blame, I will never forget that. I'll never forget the love. I'll never forget that kind of just support that I received from my family. And it taught me how to move forward in life. It taught me how to be with my own family now as a married man. How do you love unconditionally? How do you support someone unconditionally? How do you do that? How does that even work? And so, we have this really warped idea of what love is in life, right? We think love is this, we all think we love people, but I don't know that a lot of us really understand, because it's always just an exchange of benefit. Right? You're like, you do this for me and I'll do this for you, and this is love. And then as soon as that person stops doing that thing, now you're mad, and then you're like, well, you don't love me because you don't do that thing, and then so I'm not going to do this thing, and so all of a sudden you're not doing the things that you're expecting of each other, and then relationships degrade, and then you're like, we fell out of love, but it was never really love. It was just you guys were just doing stuff for each other.
Very true.
Yeah. It's interesting, and so I really got an understanding of what it means in a deeper level and how to give it.
Yeah, true love, right? True unconditional love, where it isn't a self-serving type of love. It's a selfless type of love, right?
Yeah.
I love that. So when that happened, then I would imagine on some level that is what drove you to then want to go say, okay, I gotta go build something, right? I gotta go do something. And it wasn't right away, obviously you started KeyGlee and that whole thing happened, but it was shortly thereafter, I would imagine, at some point you ended up in the US, right?
Yep.
And then you started wholesaling on your own, or you started flipping, or what did that process look like? Here you are like, okay, I gotta make something happen, I would imagine.
Yeah, so I actually left Canada and I went to LA to become a comedian first. So that was my first little stop. I was at the Upright Citizens Brigade, Second City, and I was just learning comedy. I was learning the science of comedy, and it's an extremely scientific process. In fact, once I really started to understand what goes into a joke, I couldn't listen to comedy anymore, because I was like, wow, this is so rehearsed, and it's all just so... everything matters, from timing to timing especially, but the words and the word order and the cadence and, how many times you hit a joke. It's it's all really deliberate. And so I learned that, and, I enjoyed my time as a comedian. Once you're a comedian, you're never not a comedian. So I still enjoy making people laugh in my videos and my ads, and I get to collaborate with Kanode over here, and we do funny skits and just get to exercise that creative part of me that I just never want to lose.
Yeah.
But that stop in LA, I think, gave me a lot of tools that I needed. But it's expensive to live in Los Angeles, and when you're not earning any money as a comedian, which is essentially what happens unless you're Kevin Hart, right? Comedians are broke until they're Kevin Hart.
There's no in between.
There's no in between. Like the guys in the middle, they're still poor.
Yeah.
And it's not until like you pop that you actually get somewhere, right? So it's like that's one of the hardest professions ever because the middle ground is still like you're on a grind, you're still doing clubs and they're not paying you well. You don't go on a tour of comedy clubs and come out rich. You pay bills, you might be able to support your family, but you're not buying a Rolls Royce. Like none of that's happening, right? So it's an interesting world. But I'm over there in LA trying to make my rent, and I'm noticing what's happening in Phoenix, right? I'm looking at the real estate market because I can't stop, right? When you're interested in something, you always look at it, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking at the real estate market. I'm watching just the news, and I'm sensing the bottom. I'm sensing the bottom of the 2008 calamity. And then I'm looking at real estate prices and I'm thinking, this is insane. Like, these are houses that are $25,000 that were once $300,000. Like, how does this make any sense? This is 10%. And then I'm looking at rental prices and I'm like, wow, you can buy a house for 30 grand and rent it for 1,000. Like, that's Ponzi
That's a heck
scheme
of an
returns.
ROI, yeah.
So for me, the wheel started turning, right? So I start putting properties under contract in Phoenix. My sister and I, we started to earn a little bit more money, and we had some other investments that were starting to kind of come together. She actually had pulled our family out of our economic BS that I put us in by really busting her butt in Saskatchewan, Canada. We had a couple of like run-down buildings that we didn't lose because we had given them to our father before the meltdown happened. And these were in the two worst neighborhoods in all of Canada, like nationally, the worst neighborhood of Canada. And she went and revived them and turned them into sober living properties and sold them. And really she was the revival of our family, right? So we have that money that's coming from the work that she's doing. I'm meanwhile the leech, right? I'm in LA telling jokes, not earning anything. But because my sister had saved our asses, we had a little bit of cash. And so that cash needed to be deployed somewhere so that we could grow it and create income. So I'm looking over at Phoenix, Arizona now, and I'm like, oh, wow, look at this. Like, you can get these returns. So we start putting properties under contract that were short sales. Now, I don't know if you remember that time, but short sales are an interesting beast because you can write an offer on a short sale and it won't get accepted sometimes for 6 months.
Right.
While the bank reviews offers, and there's a whole process in a short sale. So that was all happening. So the way that it would work is you would write like 10 offers and then maybe 2 would get accepted. That was just the game at that time. So because you're writing all these offers and you don't know what's going to come to fruit or not, you're writing more offers than you can actually buy. So there I am writing offers, and all of a sudden 2 properties come approved that I can't close on because we just didn't have the funds at the time, right? We'd bought other stuff. So I did what I knew how to do, which was sell a contract. And I go on to Craigslist and I write a little ad and I just share the information of what contracts we had for sale. And 15 minutes into writing that ad, my phone rings and Tim Wynn from True Freedom Achievers, he calls me up and he goes and drives by and he says, I'll take them.
Wow.
And I make $18,000 in 15 minutes. And I'm thinking, wow, I'm over here telling jokes for free. Meanwhile, I can make $20,000 near by doing what I know how to do.
Yeah.
And so it was a sign, I really had to take inventory of my values, what I was trying to accomplish in life at that point. Was I living for myself or was I living for my family? What was important to me? And did I want to continue following this path where I'm self-serving and trying to be a comedian for me? Or do I do what I have a gift to do, which is real estate, and find a way to revive our family?
Yeah.
And so I chose the latter.
Yep.
I had to sacrifice my dream so that I could rebuild our household. So I remember it clearly. It was my birthday. It was December 12th, 2012, 12/12/12.
Wow.
I'm in a U-Haul leaving LA in tears because, of course, I feel sorry for myself because I'm burying my dreams to sacrifice for our family. But that's how I felt at the time. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm never gonna make it. I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna just, flip houses and wham, poor guy, right? So what a blessing it was, because like you never realize how life will knock at your door and how all the things that you desire will find their way to you when you make the decisions that aren't for you, for other people instead, And so that's how I feel. That's what happened.
Yeah. And those decisions are tough to make, right? I mean, when you're in that moment, obviously in retrospect, you're looking back and you're talking about it and it sounds like, oh, okay, but for people watching or listening that are in maybe a moment right now where there's a fork in the road, they can go right or they can go left, and they have that gut feeling similar to you where it's like, okay, I feel like I should go that way, but that's the harder way, right? Like that typically the way you should go is typically the way that does not feel comfortable. It's not really the way you want to go. That's typically how it goes, right? In that moment, was there anything that really helped you just say, okay, you know what, enough is enough, like I'm going that direction?
Yeah, it was my family, man. Yeah. It was my sister. It was my now wife, but at the time she was my fiance, Natalie. It was wanting to do right by everybody. I wanted to build a family. I wanted to be able to take care of my little girls, Nat's, Taylor, and my Charisma, like I wanted to make sure that these girls were going to be okay. I wanted to make sure that I could do something for my mom and dad. I wanted to be able to elevate our lifestyle. I wanted to thank my sister for all the work that she had done to help us out of that situation. I wanted to be the son I knew I could be for all of us, and I had to show up for us. I had to do the work that was necessary to pull us out of the situation I put us in, and that's what it was.
I love that. Yeah, the moment you put it on other people, right? The moment it's not about you and you make it about other people is typically the moment that the floodgates open, right? Because that's what really life is all about, right? It's about other people. I love that